Christian Mystery Cleaning windows on the file coast once again. So today's video I want to talk about self-limiting beliefs. What is a self-limiting belief? A self-limiting belief is ultimately pretty much does what it says on the tin. It is you saying to yourself that you can or you cannot achieve something. You are placing ultimately a cap on your potential, and perhaps getting in your own way. This can be particularly toxic if you run a business where it comes to trying new things, trying new services, ultimately growing, potentially taking on new staff, etc. If you're the sort of person that might say to yourself, oh, I can't do that, then you are placing limits on your potential, and that is going to hurt you potentially in the long run. Scrolling through Facebook this morning on my coffee break, can't go down without coffee. This young lad was giving his sort of take, his tales of woe about having just come back off holiday. Feels like he's not had a rest. He's been smashed to bits with work, etc. He feels like he's chasing his tail for payments left, right, and Chelsea, and ultimately running himself into the ground. This guy then sort of gave his tales of woe and asked ultimately people for their insight. Is there anyone out there that might offer an opinion on something? And aside from the usual cave dwellers and sarcastic trolls, etc., a number of people, myself included, chirped in with potential suggestions, etc., on how to organise things and all this good stuff. And there were a number of people that suggested go cardless as a means of collecting payments and not having to sort of troll around and gather customers and having to keep nagging people and all this sort of good stuff. Customers in my area will never go for go cardless, etc., and persisted to list a whole host of what he thinks is reasons as to why it will not happen. A guy who runs, arguably the biggest residential window cleaning company in the UK, Lee Pryor, I've had the pleasure of meeting at the expo, came out and ultimately said, he has over 10,000 customers and all of them are on go cardless. Now that should shatter most people's belief system around as to why go cardless wouldn't work. Now I'm going to hold my hand up. I'm going to turn around and say from the get, I am not a massive fan of go cardless. Okay, we did try it. We had a couple of problems with it. It was, taking multiple payments sometimes and all this sort of stuff. We felt that we weren't too sure on how best to sort of utilise it, to be fair. And I'm not too sure as to what was going wrong, but for whatever reason, it wasn't working out for us. Now, for me, rather than just sort of chuck that in the bin, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to park that for now. Take on a few more customers, etc., and maybe try it later. Try it in the future. We might have better luck with it. Who knows? But getting back to what Lee was saying is that ultimately, if you've got a guy who's sort of saying he's got 10,000 customers, all of them are on go cardless, okay, whether or not you think go cardless is worth using or not, there is no denying that if a business that big relies on go cardless to that extent, it has to have some merit in working. Lee quite rightly identified that, the idea in this young lad's head that go cardless would not work for him, his customers won't accept it, etc., it's not based on anything other than, his gut feeling as to whether or not something will work. And that could be based purely on a preconceived idea of what one customer may have said to him in the past. If you're this guy and you've asked, maybe one person, and that person has said, oh, I'm not using go cardless, oh, I don't want that, and all that sort of stuff, that's not representative of everybody. You do not want everybody to be your customer. You want the customers that see the value in what you have to offer and are prepared to jump through the hoops that you as the business owner set. You are the person that's in control. You are the person that ultimately dictates the direction of your business. You are there to provide a service, etc., and be rewarded for it. But you ultimately choose who you provide that service for. And you then, therefore, dictate the method of payment. If the person does not want to pay Go Cardless, then quite frankly, you have to ask yourself, do you really need this customer? Are you letting the tail shake the dog? All I would say is rather than thinking in terms of, I can do this, I can't do that, this will work, that won't work, if you base it on something that you have never tried, then you are basing that purely on emotion. You are basing that purely on conjecture. There is no evidence other than what evidence you are putting forward as to whether or not something will work. So how do you get over that? It is, very useful to talk to other people who have been in similar situations. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to talk to other window cleaners. Talk to other business owners. A lot of insight as to how I run my business and how I've systemized how things work for us has come from other business owners in other industries, in smaller businesses, in larger businesses. I've learned lessons from guys who have been up and running maybe 18 months. And in the grand scheme of things are really new to being self-employed. And I've learned some massive lessons where it comes to, payments and all this sort of stuff, how these guys have gone about getting payments, etc. So it's not just about looking up, it's looking around. Yeah. Yes, Lee Pryor is generating, millions of pounds, etc. In window cleaning, etc. And it's great to get someone's insight. But be aware of other people in your circle of friends that might have an insight, might have a suggestion. They might have really valid suggestions. They might be talking out of the backside, but ultimately you get to choose, which advice you decide to follow. And you have to base that advice on information that's worth listening to, So, yeah, all I would say is rather than thinking in terms of you cannot get over something is hard, something is outside of your comfort zone, instead of thinking that something is impossible, start thinking in terms of, how do I overcome this? Yes, you accept in your mind that it's hard, it's difficult, it's bloody hard at times. But instead of saying, that's hard, wall up, bang, I can't go beyond that, or, that's my limit, instead of saying that, say to yourself, how do I get past that? Who do I need to talk to get an insight on that? And whether it's, another window cleaner, whether it's someone you watch on YouTube, whether it's, a person whether it's a complete and utter stranger that you seem to think is, where you want to be, then surely it's worth a conversation. Sure, it's worth an insight. Surely it's worth looking into growing. Because, the idea of a self-made man is a fallacy. We are ultimately, no one came out of the womb going, right, fantastic, I know everything. See you later, chaps, I'm off. Boom, and creates an empire. Nobody achieves masses, any form of massive success alone. It's all about the lessons you learn, the company you keep. It's all about the questions you ask. It's all about, sort of growing as a person. We cannot grow as a person alone. So it's all about engaging with other people and seek advice, etc. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my weekend. I strongly suggest that you guys do the same. Thank you for enjoying to the end of the video. If you like the videos that I put out, please consider like, sharing and subscribing. And shall see you in the next video. Keep on keeping on.